The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Great to have you in. It's a road show Wednesday. Hail Varsity Radio at Millard South. A little afternoon baseball for Junior, maybe. I see him in the dugout anyway. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, as Elijah back in studio. A lot of football to get to, and we'll talk it over with some of our favorites. Mike Babcock going to be with us from Hail Varsity in about 15 minutes or so. We'll check in with Babbers and Mike Schuchart, Wilderness Ridge Golf. Shuey joins the party this first hour. Evan Bland, next hour from the Omaha World Herald. Plenty of thoughts on the spring game and all sorts of topics to dive into. The FPI numbers are out. A couple of final thoughts on Dylan Rhule. We spent some time on that yesterday. Really fascinating article from The Athletic about stars, star development, and those stars off to the NFL. Just an obscene number with Nebraska and their four-star production. And plenty to get into on Deion v. Rhule, Rhule v. Deion. We broached it briefly, gave you a heads up, had a preliminary chat about it yesterday. But now we have, we're going to provide you with some full context, what Rhule actually said, or the actual back and forth from PTI. That is on our radar. Numbers to get in today with Hail Varsity Radio, 489-1240, 489-1240. Here to join us can also do so toll-free, 1-800-825-5865. Can email the show, Chris at hailvarsity.com. Watch the show as I'm here in the Millard South press box. Windows open. It's a little muggy. We'll see if there's storm issues tonight here in eastern Nebraska, but can watch the show, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel, the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter handle at HVarsity Radio, KFOR Facebook and Twitter. Also ways to get in touch with us via StreamYard. Elijah, what's shaking? How you doing?
Not too bad. It's a little weird being here in the studio in the middle of a tornado watch, so hopefully the sirens don't go off during our show, crossing my fingers. Not because I'm scared of the weather. I mean, I'm a Midwesterner. I'm used to tornado watch at this point, but I don't want to have to go off the air and have to get into severe weather alerts and coverage, so that would be no fun. Well, hopefully the weather stays away. Looks like it's supposed to be a while now, but I was not expecting to see that about 15 minutes ago. Lincoln, Lancaster County into a tornado watch whenever the weather outside looks beautiful still.
So I picture this response to a twister from one Elijah Herbel. Elijah will go full Draymond, and he'll find some place to stand up and both palms saying, bring it, bring it. He'll be asking the twister to bring it on. Little Lieutenant Dan tribute in the middle of a hurricane, right? Except Nebraska in Tornado Alley. Millard South taking some infield right now as Southwest in their dugout watching. I will not horrify you with my baseball play-by-play. We will keep it to Nebraska football today. Brennan is checking in. He wants us to dive into our hidden gems of the spring game. We will get there tomorrow. And Brennan's also taunting me a bit. Midwesterners should be outdoors here and do a broadcast in severe weather. I will let braver men attempt that. So let's dive into this Deion Rhule situation, and maybe you're wore out by it. You've probably seen it on social media, the pardon the interruption segment. And listen, the name of this game right now for ESPN and for Colorado is to make it juicy. Let's get it a little spicy. Let's dive in and make sure people tune in to Coach Prime first and foremost Saturday, since ESPN's gone all in on the Buffs spring game. And if you're Matt Rhule and you're asked about Coach Prime and your comments, maybe that'll happen around 4:15 tomorrow. great, give me an answer. But Coach Rhule was asked about the portal, okay? His take on the portal. This was Saturday. This was after spring scrimmage number 2. And what do we think Nebraska needs? Well, we think Nebraska probably needs some more offensive linemen. They have 12. We don't know if they can go a full game Saturday because of the numbers. And Rhule has gone and gotten kids from the portal. Nebraska's done portal work. Good for them. But Matt Rhule's made it abundantly clear that he is concerned about keeping a number of guys he thinks can play ball for him on this team this season. He doesn't want defections who he thinks, and he's been able to evaluate this spring, to leave. To me, it kind of comes down to style, right? Style is different. Deion is Deion. Deion is Coach Prime. The shirts you see in Boulder, assuming there are shirts for sale still in Boulder, it says Prime. It isn't Buffs. It isn't Coach Neon, Deion, and the Buffs. It's him and his brand to Colorado. It's not, hey, I'm getting to coach this once great football program. It's the other way around. Rhule, to me, seems a we, not a me. And team first. And listen, Nebraska will have a chance to shut up any doubters. And it's a familiar name that likes to get on Nebraska's case, in Michael Wilbon. Let's hear from Coach Rhule. What was said? Again, this was in reference to the portal, and this was molded and formed and sculpted into, was it a shot at Deion? It might have been just a shot about the portal in general, but Elijah, let's hear from Coach Rhule from last Saturday.
I really appreciate these guys. They're trying so hard. Like, with all of our craziness, you get in a fight in the scrimmage, and they've got guys running the stadium steps, like in the middle of a scrimmage, and they're like, okay, coach, they just do it, man. They're awesome. But we got to get better too. So whereas I hear other schools talking about they can't wait for today, the transfer portal, they can't wait to go out. I can't wait to coach my guys. Let me tell you that. Like, I'm not thinking about anybody else other than this team that's out here. So I appreciate them. They're trying really hard to do all that. There's just a lot of work to be done, but we're way ahead of where I thought we would be. I want to make sure. Sometimes I say things, I think people hear it. I'm so fired up with where we are. Like, we're in a great place. It's just not, I want to win a bunch of games, and they want to win a bunch of games. So we just have to keep accelerating, man.
So I did not hear Coach Rhule refer to any kids out there or that he'd bring with him as Louis. He hasn't referred to anyone as luggage. And if you're Deion, you got to flip that thing, man. You were 130th in the country out of 130 last year. You need different players. You need difference makers. From a treatment standpoint, it seems like there's not a lot of care, and I may be insinuating too much, with Deion. I think Deion probably cares if you can help him. But Deion is ready to chew you up and spit you out if you're not part of that Louis collection, Elijah.
And whenever you listen to the cut, we talked about this yesterday. Whenever you listen to the cut, I do think Matt Rhule's, I shouldn't say taking a shot at Deion, but he's taking a shot at coaches like Deion. And I think if you were to ask Matt Rhule about this, which he'd probably never go on the record with this, I think he'd probably say something on the lines of, well, I said what I said, and if you take offense to it, then yes, it was about you. That's about the take I get on that with, you know what? I'm not sitting here attacking Coach Prime specifically, but there's been a lot out there in the past couple weeks about the transfer portal reopening. We talked about it a lot last week. Who's Nebraska going to lose? Who's Nebraska going to try to add? And he's kind of sending a message to his team saying, hey, we're going to go probably hit the transfer portal this summer. Some of you guys are going to hit the transfer portal. That's not my focus. My focus right now is getting you guys better. And I don't like the other coaches out there right now that aren't about making their team better. They're talking about addition by subtraction. You know what? We're going to turn over this roster via the transfer portal. That's not what I'm about. I think it's first and foremost a message to his team saying, you know what, guys? I am here. I'm going to care about you. There's going to be stuff in the media. You're going to hear other players come into the transfer portal. They're coming to Nebraska. That's not about you guys. My number one priority is getting you guys better. And if any coaches out there took offense to that, then yeah, it probably was about you because we don't have our ideals, I should say, aligned in the exact same way. It's kind of how I said yesterday, Coach Prime and Matt Rhule, they're oil and water. that they don't mix. Like it just doesn't work how those
just
two
their
coach.
styles.
Yes.
Just their styles.
It doesn't work that way.
It's a style thing.
So if you're taking offense to that, Coach Prime, then yeah, you know what? Maybe it was a bit of a shot at you because we don't do our coaching the exact same way, and I think my way is better than you because I'm not saying Matt Rhule is high and mighty like that, but to have the confidence to be a coach at a high Power 5 Division I level, you have confidence in the way that you do things, and he's going up there and saying, this is the way I'm going to do things. This is why I think it's right.
Let's get to, pardon the interruption, 3 different parts to this. First, the setup from Tony Kornheiser as it came up yesterday right around 5 o'clock PTI. Listen, I get a kick out of that show. I've enjoyed both Wilbon and Mr. Tony for a lot of years, but Wilbon clearly has a bone to pick with Nebraska that goes all the way back to the Big Red daring to challenge Commissioner Warren at the time. But here's Mr. Tony setting up what they're going to discuss.
We've got potential college football coach beef here between Deion Sanders at Colorado and Matt Rhule at Nebraska. Deion has been crowing about all the players he's bringing in through the transfer portal. He's already got 42, and he says he wants more. Rhule pointedly said, and I'm quoting here, I hear other schools talking about how they can't wait for the transfer portal. I can't wait to coach my guys, unquote. Wilbon, do you see that as a shot at Deion in Colorado, who plays Nebraska in their second game of the season?
So that's the setup. They took the nugget.
What do you make of it?
And is he taking a swipe at Deion? I think it's more the portal situation. Again, Rhule's worried about here and now in Lincoln. Who's in that locker room? Who's the roster? And if you're not part of it, or you have a differing take, or your answer, and it might be the right answer for Colorado, it just isn't Nebraska's answer. Not fully. 17's not a small number. This is Wilbon getting after Coach Rhule.
I make of it this sanctimonious, I'd like to use a letter, 2 letters. Okay, sanctimonious garbage. This is great. This is another Big Ten coach I can immediately start to dislike, even though this is not a Big Ten beef because Deion's not in the Big Ten. He got 17 transfers of his own. Who is he taking shots at somebody from get? You think that Matt Rhule wouldn't order up a G6 to fly to the transfer portal if it was a physical place to pick up as many people in aisle 6 as he could? Please. I could go and just call it a straight up lie. I'll just manage to call it sanctimony, which is what it is. Now, Deion is just not being sanctimonious. Deion just saying, get me to the portal is what he's saying. That's what they're all saying. All the coaches are saying, get me to the portal, including the ones who can't actually get anybody from the portal. So maybe I got to give Matt Rhule, new Big Ten coach, a big hug and a welcome to the conference, give him some benefit of the doubt. But if he's serious with that statement, please.
Yeah.
So, Tony sticks the landing. Guess what? We're talking Nebraska, Colorado, 4 months away.
So I love this. I love when coaches attack other coaches. I love when Jimbo Fisher attacked Nick Saban and vice versa.
Attack?
Deion is an almost mythic figure. Deion says what he wants. He does not care what you say back. He's probably amused by Matt Rhule, if he even knows who Matt Rhule is. Okay?
Exactly.
Now, Matt Rhule is a really good college coach.
Yes, he is.
But he hasn't been in college for 3 years. He's been with the Carolina Panthers where he was awful. He probably wished there was a transfer portal in the NFL so he could get rid of the junk that he was coaching with the Carolina Panthers. I'll tell you what this means to me, Mike. I'm going to watch this game. I'm going to watch a game between teams that were 1-11 last year and 4-8 last year, and I'm going to watch it because it's old school against new school. I don't know if it was a shot at Deion, but I'm willing to believe it was, and I like it. Let's take a break.
Beautiful. You know what? I love this. It is Nebraska. It's Colorado. You get Nebraska. You get Colorado the next 2 years. There's always some animosity on both parts. Buff fans love to beat Nebraska or like to feed it to Nebraska. Husker fans love to stomp Colorado. And it's got a very storied history. It ain't Nebraska, Oklahoma. It's probably not even Nebraska. It was Nebraska, Texas, and it was supposed to replace Nebraska, Oklahoma. We'll talk to Mike Babcock about that here in the next segment. But listen, they at least acknowledged Matt Rhule's a good coach. Thank you for doing that. But the dreaded topic of sanctimony, Elijah.
Yeah, and again, back to my original point, I don't think first and foremost Matt Rhule was trying to disparage any other coach. And again, I'll stick by it where if another coach took offense to it, then yeah, it's probably about you because you're the one who's using the transfer portal. But that's a message to his own team, just saying like other coaches are hitting the transfer portal. We're probably going to hit the transfer portal this summer, but that's not my main concern. My main concern is getting you guys better. But yeah, it's the way of college football. Matt Rhule is going to go hit the transfer portal. It's how it goes, and that's why I think he's getting out there in front of this and saying this comment so Nebraska media and so Nebraska players can hear, you know what, my main concern is not the transfer portal, it's you guys.
If you're going to preach confidence and development, which he's done and he's going to hammer home here, you need to be able to work with what you got, get those guys better. That is his first, second, and third goal. That's his intent. Great to be with you. We're on the road here Wednesday. Hail Varsity at Millard South, Southwest and Millard South Reserve Baseball. Getting it going here in a few minutes. Mike Babcock is in the on-deck circle. It's Hail Varsity. We're presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you. It's Hail Varsity Radio on the road here at Millard South Reserve Baseball. Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel back in studio. Mike Babcock in his football abode at MD Babs on Twitter. Babbers, let's throw back and tribute the old Burger King commercial, Where's the Beef? Do you see a lot of beef between Rhule and Deion Sanders here? We're talking about ESPN even 24 hours later. We touched on it yesterday. Got a little context and audio with it. Why don't we just get an octagon and see Deion v. Rhule? How about that in the halftime show of September 9th? Is it a win?
Yeah, well, here's my thought on this. I don't think Matt Rhule was referring to Colorado. I think, it's not in his nature to be looking at one game, a non-conference game, the second game of the season, the coach of a team that is not in the same conference as he is. I think it's Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon doing what they do, which is creating some sort of a controversy. I just think that it's the day and age. We have to have these kinds of things. We have to generate these kind of things if there aren't people that step up and do them. And one thing, I don't blame Deion Sanders for looking at the transfer portal. You're taking a program that was 1-11 last year, and you've got to make some changes quickly. I think that's the expectation. And if you use the transfer portal, my understanding is, right, you can bring in more. In recruiting, you're limited to a certain number of recruits that you can bring in each year, right? Scholarship recruits. But the transfer portal opens it up so that you get more than what you're allowed in the recruiting section of it. So why wouldn't you do that if you're Deion Sanders trying to get things turned around? And why wouldn't you say the things that you're saying, as Coach Rhule has said from the beginning, that he's trying to coach up the players that he has because those are the ones that he expects to have. And then, yes, Nebraska will go into the transfer portal and will add people. And Nebraska still has some people to get off the roster to get down to the allowed 85 scholarship players. So it's a totally different situation for Nebraska than it is for Deion Sanders at Colorado. And again, I go back to the fact that it's a single game, a non-conference game. It's Nebraska's second game. Why would Matt Rhule be referring specifically to Colorado? This doesn't make any sense to me. And it seems like something that's being generated by a show that's the purpose of that show, is to generate some controversy. And what better way to get people to watch that game than if you're generating controversy in the spring for a game that doesn't take place until several months. And it's Nebraska's second game. I didn't look to see, is it Colorado's first game?
No, Buffs are at TCU.
Oh, okay. So
start
there you
off.
go. So wonder what the TCU coach has been saying about Prime.
Well, Mike, what do you make of
I wonder.
of Wilbon essentially saying, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but this is my takeaway from what he said, is essentially calling Matt Rhule a hypocrite, saying you're bemoaning Coach Prime using the transfer portal, but you have brought in 17 guys yourself. Do you think he's got a point there?
No, I don't, because again, I think it's a different kind of a situation. I think you're talking numbers of guys that Colorado is bringing in, and, Deion has told some players, I think, that, hey, you need to move on because of what we're doing here. But no, I don't think he's being hypocritical. I think he's acknowledging that, and I think on some level, everybody is going to do this. Even Deion is probably going to do it at some point in his coaching career there at Colorado, is that the transfer portal can be a positive, obviously, but how do you control it? I mean, it's difficult to develop young players because they're not going to stick around in your program. And at some point that's maybe the way, maybe that's not going to happen anymore. Maybe the idea is just get guys in the transfer portal but where are they going to come from? Because there are going to be no young players that are starting to develop. That's a thing. I don't think he was being hypocritical. Again, I think it's just how you interpret the whole thing. I think that's what Michael Wilbon was doing.
Mike Babcock's with us, HailVarsity.com and magazine. Get your subscription today to the magazine and the digital platform, HailVarsity.com/offer. Babber's 11 years of data. The Athletic dove in, 5 stars, 4 stars. And they have a hit rate, and then they have a bottom 10. Nebraska with a bullet. Number 1 on that bottom 10 list when it comes to worst development. That is 5 stars or 4 stars that turn out and end up in the NFL. Of 67 4 stars Nebraska has signed the last 11 years, only 4.5% have gone to the NFL. What's that say to you?
Well, I think you have to bring in another factor there. You can develop guys that fit your program and be successful in your program that are not necessarily going to be NFL players. That's not necessarily the case. And it was a long time ago again, but Nebraska, when it ran the option, those quarterbacks were not NFL type players, but they certainly were developed into great players in a system that fit what Nebraska wanted to do. And so that's the thing that you have to frame it in that sense. Now, the lack of success that Nebraska has had in recent seasons would magnify that. So that's probably a problem. They're not developing to a point where they can be successful at this level, which then is not surprising that they don't make it to the next level. But the first concern is, can they develop those players to be successful at this level? And again, I think you can do that without necessarily being an successful NFL player. That would be the only thing that I would say relative to that. But it doesn't surprise me, I guess, because of the lack of success that Nebraska's had as a team.
Well, Mike, what do you just make of the overall movement in college football towards evaluating a program based on their NFL draftability, if you will, in that, with the transfer portal and NIL, that's a new barometer, is guys want to go to the NFL and they're going to go to the programs that they think give them a good chance of going to the NFL. So it's kind of cyclical in that if you can develop a lot of NFL talent, you can bring in more talent, and that leads to a more successful program. Do you think that's a fair barometer for the success of a college football program?
Well, yeah, I think that's probably where we're at, Elijah. I've used this example before, I think, but I think it was Carl Hicks that told me this when he came from junior college to Nebraska. He was really happy to be here because he said there was so much more of a team atmosphere here than in junior college. That in junior college, everybody was looking to get to the next level, and so it was all about me. It wasn't about the team. It was about me. And he got here, and it was about the team. Okay, now we're to the point where if everybody's mindset is, I want to get to the NFL, that's my goal, then it's all about me again. It's difficult to develop that kind of team concept when you've got a whole bunch of guys that, hey, I want to get to the NFL, it's about me. You have to be able to, as a coach, get that mindset to where you're going to be able to get to the NFL if this team is successful and you show the kinds of things that you do, if that makes any sense.
Mike Babcock's with us, HailVarsity.com and magazine. Hail Varsity on the road today here at Millard South. You know, one thing that has happened at Baylor very good under Coach Rhule and also Dave Aranda at developing 4 stars. They've had 29 4-star guys, and 11 ended up in the NFL. That's pretty impressive. You look at the quantity and quality for an LSU, 142 4-star guys, 48 of them have gone to the NFL, 149 for Ohio State, 49 of that 149, about a third of those 4 stars for Ohio State go. Bama, a whopping 170 4-star guys the last 11 years. Only 52 went to the NFL. A couple minutes left here, Mike. A thought from you on Saturday, the spring game. Give me 2 guys you're looking for, one on offense, one on defense. Who are you intrigued by?
Well, I'm intrigued by Chief Borders just because he was such an articulate guy, and I really thought that he had a lot to say when we had an opportunity to talk with him. And I want to see him on the field. I want to see how he plays. Offense. Who would I look for on offense? Gosh, there's probably the quarterback, the transfer quarterback. That's probably going to get an opportunity because Casey is going to be not. Is Casey going to be able to be involved at all?
I don't think so, man. I think he's probably going to be helping call plays.
Yeah, that was my understanding. How about some of those receivers?
It'd be fun to see Kemp.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kemp would be probably my first choice, but maybe the receivers have gotten a lot of positive comments, and so I could probably pick out one of those. But Betts is back. Be interested to see how he fits into that thing. But Kemp, let's see his ability to run the ball, which seems to be the thing that could set him apart. I'll be interested to see how he plays.
Yeah, I want to see Harburg do his thing. I'm anxious to see also what's the new and improved Nash Hutmacher look like? What's the polar bear going to do with some more mobility?
Schmidt, you're giving away what our topic's going to be tomorrow. You're starting to give away some of your answers.
We got all sorts of time yet tomorrow. Mike Babcock with us. Babbers, thanks for jumping on, man. Always fun to talk some ball with you. Love your perspective on Rhule v. Deion. Again, where's the beef, my man?
Thanks for having me, guys.
Appreciate it. Good stuff from Mike Babcock on Hail Varsity Radio. So we are underway here at Millard South. Landon Kelly, tremendous quarterback for Southwest, awesome baseball player. He walked, so he's on first base. We will add some baseball commentary, and we'll see if the crowd mic here can pick up the umpire's calls to get an Elijah Herbel approval.
Hey, if I was there, you'd hear me. You'd hear me loud and
on
clear.
The volume. On the volume for sure. We'll spend some time, a little golf thought, some football too from Mike Schuchart, Evan Bland on the way.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back here, Hail Varsity Radio, Roadshow Wednesday. We're here in the press box at Millard South. Little afternoon baseball for reserve Silverhawk action. And Millard South, talented squad, great program. So excited to be perched up here. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Don't forget, we are at the Single Barrel tomorrow, 9th and P, getting your spring game weekend kicked off the right way. Over 200 bourbons to choose from, some cold beer, big old thick juicy steak. Come see us 4 to 6. Single Barrel down inside the Graduate. We are going to bring on Mike Schuchart here in just a moment, talk some golf. I'm interested to see if Shuey ever had a chance to witness his own Happy Gilmore / Draymond Green moment. Has he ever been out on the course on tour where someone freaks out like Happy did? Happy did it so well, especially with Bob Barker. That was glorious. We welcome in with Wilderness Ridge Mike Schuchart. Great times out there for spring golf and getting you geared up for the summer. Shuey, you got your red face paint for the spring game, bud. How we doing?
Doing good, always. Can't wait.
So are you gonna go, or are you just gonna keep an eye on it while you're putting for dough?
Yeah, I'll be out here working away, so I'll let all my outside guys go. They all want to go, so.
Well, good.
Okay.
That's very kind, Shuey. So I was asking this before we brought you on. Draymond Green has kind of been in the news cycle with his stomp, but also his reaction to the crowd. Have you ever seen somebody melt down like that, or maybe a little less like that on the tour, on the course? Did someone ever go Happy Gilmore?
Oh yeah. So here's one of my best. So we're playing at the LA Open. The putting green sits down below the clubhouse, and there's a balcony up there. And there were these 3 guys, younger guys, LA boys. They were drinking. Well, they're betting on him as he's putting, making or missing. They're getting drunker, and then they're screaming. The guy's missing putts that he's betting on, this and that. You suck. So Bobby Watkins, who was old rough guy, he finally had enough, couldn't take it. So he started climbing the freaking downspout up to the balcony, and he was going to take their heads off. So it was actually pretty entertaining to watch.
Well, Mike, you mentioned the fact that you're going to be out working outside on Saturday. If you're going to be in that golf ball shagging machine on the driving range and people start aiming for you, would you have that kind of reaction as well? You know, go stomp on somebody?
I would not hesitate to run them right over. So.
How far did old boy make it up the drain spout?
He got pretty close to the top, but he couldn't quite make it all the way up there because it's a little overhang and he couldn't quite get around. But
man,
he scared those boys. They didn't anticipate him doing that, so they kind of headed into the clubhouse.
Yeah, they went and ordered another tall one, but without a harm's way. Mike Schuchart's with us, Wilderness Ridge Golf. Shuey, what do you like about this spring so far for Nebraska football? You have a plan, a vision, a system, and now you just got to get good at development. And I know that's it's near and dear to your heart on the green and in the tee box. You've been a great developer for so many years. You now see it in front and center for Nebraska football.
Yeah, I mean, that's just I listened to Coach Satterfield last night. You know, I like to listen to them talk. It's just really entertaining to listen to them. You know, they're very professional at what they do. They're very dedicated. They have a plan. They have a process in what they're trying to do, which is very much what I believe in. You know, it's like you can't play perfect, but you try not to make – it's like playing golf, right? Mm-hmm. So you never want to back up a bad shot with another bad shot. It's okay to hit a bad shot. You just don't want to hit 2 in a row. So they're talking about not making a mistake twice in a row type of a thing. So it's like it's just staying in the present, doing what you do and what you've trained yourself to do. And so it's just fun listening to them. Now see if it can all come to be, which it sounds like it. I mean, it's exciting. I mean, they're very enthusiastic and have a lot of positive things to say. So now we'll get to kind of see what it looks like.
Mike Schuchart's with us here. It's Hail Varsity Radio. Mike joining us here from Wilderness Ridge. And Mike, a game that we're probably going to play tomorrow. We just had Mike give off some of his guys he thinks are most intriguing for the spring game. Who are you most curious about with this spring practice in terms of seeing them on a football field on Saturday, no matter how limited that may be?
Who am I? The quarterback, Sims.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to see what he has. So, it's like you already know what you got with Thompson, so what do you got with him? So if you got two proven guys, some of the other guys that are, younger class, see what they have. And I think our defensive line, more than anything, just the defense, just because it's different, reading about it, what they do, how they play, different looks. You just see what that looks like. Because I don't think we've ever, at least I haven't really seen anything like that. So kind of see what that's going to look like, how it plays.
Shuey, is there a defensive style you like best? Are you more of a man coverage, blitz the heck out of them, or
baby?
You like the high intensity, high aggressiveness? Because I think that's what can work for Nebraska.
Bring the heat, man. So can't be afraid to get burned. Just bring the heat. So
make them beat you for sure.
And then you just wear them down, man. You keep bringing the heat. You hit the quarterback enough times, by the fourth quarter, you don't like to be getting hit. So it's like hit him as many times as you can. Hard.
Mike Schuchart's with us, Wilderness Ridge Golf. Shuey, before we say goodbye, bud, what's going on at Wilderness? Tell folks about all that has happened, because I know there's been a lot of construction, and, man, it's gorgeous, the Aquatic Center, but also some new things to see if folks are thinking about joining.
Yeah, there's a lot of new things. There's been a lot of stuff going on. So, obviously, we have our new Pro Shopping Academy. Pool opened in July last year. It's been a massive hit. We opened our members area called the Timbers. So, that's been a huge success. Our workout facility is beautiful. Pickleball tennis courts, they're under construction right now, so you can start to see them taking shape. So a lot of stuff going on. So, and we're actually hosting the Summit League men and women's championship starting on Sunday. So we'll get to see some college golf for the next couple of days. Both the women are first and the men are second. So we're hosting their championship out here next couple of weeks. So that'll be exciting. See some good golf.
That'll be outstanding. UNO, University of Denver, the Dakotas. Pretty big time. And, man, it's going to be a gorgeous setup for those folks at Wilderness. Shuey, enjoy your spring Saturday. We'll get connected again next week. Appreciate you, as always, man, for making time. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on. Stay safe.
There he is, Mike Schuchart, Wilderness Ridge Golf. Hail Varsity Radio, winding down hour one. We're here at Millard South, Southwest, and the Patriots reserve game going on.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, it's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. Reminder to get buckled up. One of every 3 fatal crashes in Nebraska involves an alcohol-impaired driver. Why take chances? If you drink, don't drive. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Hail Varsity Radio up here at Millard South. Southwest reserves 3 and Millard South nothing as they bat. Plenty to talk about this first hour. Reaction to Deion and Rhule, the beef, or where's the beef? And the development discussion per The Athletic, the 5-stars and 4-star projects. Did they get developed? Were they hits? Were they misses? And how many got developed into the NFL? We'll get into that a little further, a little deeper in hour 2. Evan Bland is also on the way. Well, we spent time on Draymond Green yesterday. He got one game.
Called it.
One game. But you know what I think sold the NBA on their punishment? I think it was the fact that Commissioner Silver was in the crowd. And imagine Commissioner Silver in the crowd seeing Draymond going full WWE, egging the crowd on. And Silver's like, oh, my God, is there going to be another Malice at the Palace?
Well, one of my favorite NBA, I'm not sure you call him a reporter, he covers the NBA, maybe a personality is the best way to put it, Rob Perez. I follow him on Twitter, and he made light of it that night. He said we were robbed of a press box shot of Adam Silver. We were robbed of that. We got to see Draymond yelling at the fans, but what was Adam Silver's reaction? Somebody could have panned the camera over to Adam Silver, and we could have all found out, but alas, will have to be a mystery. But I think it's fair to say...
Dude was horrified.
I mean, yeah, based on the one-game suspension, that was the worst possible case for him.
Yeah, he was horrified. Golden State has got tons of eyeballs, and the reality is this: there's still a little bit of a love affair with Sacramento, Elijah. And the eyeballs, as late as that game went, I mean, it did sick ratings. Mm-hmm. And it's fun. And people want to see either Golden State go down or you still have an affinity for them. And you just know that Draymond's a ticking time bomb. We'll see how long his time is in San Francisco. We invite you to catch the podcast of Hail Varsity Radio, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, where you can hear the audio, the full show, or just segments you want to hear. Mike Babcock, Mike Schuchart, or Evan Bland a little bit later. Great stuff from Mitch Sherman yesterday. We spent plenty of time talking Dylan Raiola, and you'd have to imagine in the coming weeks there's going to be an official announcement with him headed to Georgia. And you just do the math. You do the math on all the times he's been to SC. You do the math on all the times he's been to Lincoln. And you do the math on all the times he's been to Georgia. And he, remember, was in Georgia after his trip to Lincoln at the end of March. I'm not a smart guy, Elijah, but to me that's got to be, okay, let's talk Turkey. Let's talk NIL. Do you think Nebraska got outbid, or do you think it's just Nebraska's not willing to go to a certain number on one guy? That's something to chew on.
Well, we don't know what the financials of the 1890 collective look like, so this might remain a mystery. We don't know, and maybe this is something we'll learn about in some confidential 5 years from now, but...
I'm just, Georgia...
Throwing it out there, yeah.
Georgia's got their NIL thing going. Evan Bland on the way, hour 2 coming up.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Thanks for hanging out. Back into it. It's hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency for all your equipment financing needs. Go Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel up here at Millard South. As a 4:30 ball game got underway, the reserves of Southwest and the Patriots of Millard South as the Silverhawks batting right now. Plenty to get into with Evan Bland. Big Saturday ahead for Nebraska, 1 o'clock on BTN. We're at the Single Barrel 11-1. Saturday, we're at the Single Barrel tomorrow, 4-6. 9th and P inside the Graduate. Welcome in Evan Bland at Evan Bland OWH on Twitter. Evan, how's the week? Thanks for the time.
Yeah, no problem. Doing well here. Spring game on the horizon, and spring weather's here. It's all good.
It is all good. There's no precipitation where I'm sitting right now. That's a great thing. I know Lightning ruined the party last night with Husker Baseball as a rally was put together. Bryce and company got the whooping sticks out and went deep a couple of times. And you know what? It sounds like 4-4 will be picked up here on May 9th. Is that something you're hearing?
Yeah, that's sort of the word on the street. I know Creighton was willing to come out and just say that right after the game. Nebraska has kind of stuck to this to be determined statement, but I mean, it makes the most sense. I know that's the third game in the series. I think it's supposed to start at 7, so you can, barring weather, foresee a scenario pretty easily where they can get down there to Charles Schwab Field and finish that thing out. So, yeah, I mean, it was a weird situation where you have a suspended game. There was definitely lightning and thunder in the area, but it never rained, I don't think, at all as that night went on. So that was kind of an odd dynamic, but ultimately, hopefully they are able to finish the game and get that result in the books one way or another.
Now, Evan, I'm pretty comfortable with the Baseball Federation rules in terms of a completed game, but what is a complete game in college baseball? Should this one not be picked up? Would it be considered a complete game that would end in a tie? Would it be a no contest? Have you been looking into this? I can do it in the meantime as well to figure it out, but what would happen if this game is unable to be picked up?
I mean, I just think that would be really unlikely. It's possible. I mean, I guess all you really have to do is look back to last year when almost an identical situation where those teams got like 3 innings in and weather rolled through and it was suspended and they were not able to finish. I'm trying to remember the circumstances of that one. I don't know that they had another game on the slate at that point and they were just trying to find a time and it didn't work out. But, I mean, you have another day set aside for this game. So I would just be surprised if you don't find a way to finish it. I'm fairly certain it's the same in college as it is in the majors, where you know 5 complete is the standard for a complete game. And you know there was talk, at least among some of the Creighton support people, that if Nebraska had even had potentially one more batter and was able to take the lead, that might have just been the game, and they wouldn't have worried about resuming it at a later point. But it didn't work out that way, and it's still a tie game, so you're going to have to continue it either way. But I think Nebraska's got something like fewer than 10 ties in its baseball history, and one of them was this year because you're playing a team on the West Coast on getaway day and you have flights to catch. But I just don't see any way that 2 teams that still have a game to play that are 60 miles apart can't find time to squeeze in a couple extra innings.
Evan Bland with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Evan with the Omaha World-Herald. Evan, good story today from you on Nebraska's postseason path. We look at Nebraska's record, we look at their RPI, we look at the league they're in. There's some opportunity, but also you step sideways and it really can and will hurt you just because Nebraska's RPI is not great. They haven't handled much aside from Michigan and Vandy, right? So tell me a little bit more here as we dig deeper into Nebraska's postseason opportunity.
Well, it's kind of a unique path because, just on the surface, it's a team that does look like it could make some noise in a potential regional. I mean, from what Bryce Matthews and Max Anderson are doing to Emmett Olson, statistically, they're about as balanced as you see anybody in the country. And at this point in the year, they're first place in the Big Ten. You look at all that and you would say, boy, this is a team that's well on its way to the NCAA tournament. But these other circumstances, whether that be a non-conference schedule that hasn't worked out well, or whether that be stumbling in the midweek, it has added up to this RPI just north of 100 that really, at this point in the year, history would say it's really hard and almost impossible to make up that gap to get down to right around 40, which is sort of the cutoff. If you remember Rutgers last year, they were the first team out. I think they were 43 or 44 or something like that. And so that's really where you need to be to feel comfortable. And it's unlikely, even with a decent schedule, that you could close that gap. But then you look at what Nebraska has left, other than road series against Iowa and Maryland, it's all quad 3, quad 4 type of opponents where there's kind of not a lot to gain and a decent amount to lose. And so it sets up a really interesting scenario, in my opinion, where Nebraska is very much in the mix for the Big Ten regular season championship. History would say if they go 11-4 the rest of the way, they get to 18 wins. That would be right in the mix to win the league, and it has been since it's been a 13-team baseball league. But that probably would not also close your RPI to where you need to be. So there is a scenario out there, I think, where Nebraska could win the Big Ten regular season, and if they don't take care of business in the tournament, they'd still be left out looking in. So it's kind of an odd dynamic. We'll see how it shakes out. But really, the bottom line is they need to go on a big run starting now, and if not that, then they'll have to win the conference tournament to get into June baseball.
Evan, with Nebraska's lineup, I mean, it's very possible they have 2 All-Americans in their starting lineup. And what would that mean to you if Nebraska, with 2 guys, potentially Bryce Matthews and Max Anderson, earning All-American honors or close to it based on the seasons they've been having, if Nebraska were to miss the NCAA tournament, what would that mean to you?
Well, yeah, I mean, it'd be a missed opportunity. There's no way around it. I mean, if you get the kind of seasons that you've had from Max Anderson and Bryce Matthews, and I still say Emmett Olson deserves consideration with what he's done on Fridays. Yeah, I mean, you feel like it's absolutely a missed chance, especially in a year when the Big Ten is a little bit down. I think from an RPI perspective, Indiana's far and away that leader in the clubhouse. There's some other top 100 teams from an RPI standpoint that I think will sort of fade as you get further into league play here. But they absolutely have the talent. They have the depth. They addressed a lot of their needs out of the portal in the offseason that have worked out. The bullpen has rounded into form. It's just been, just some of those circumstances that I have outlined that may conspire to keep Nebraska out. And it would be a shame because I do think if you get in there, man, those guys, especially Matthews and Anderson, man, I mean, in those clutch spots, they've been money all season. And even if you have to go on the road and be a 3 seed somewhere, like it would just be really fun to see what that team could do and how far they might be able to go. So, they're certainly not out of it. There's 20 to 25 baseball games left to be played, almost assuredly, barring weather, and we'll see how it goes from there. But yeah, this is the time of year when those memories are made, and to have some elite level players coming through in clutch spots, I mean, that's what it's all about. So you hope they'll have the stage to perform.
Evan, let's talk some spring football. Nebraska gets after it on Saturday. We'll see what that looks like. We'll know more about 24 hours from now, right, from Coach Rhule, as he'll speak in the afternoon tomorrow. But with this Nebraska team, we know it's going to be physical. We know he wants competition. Are you expecting a pretty good half of 3 yards in a cloud of dust with what you're going to see? What's the quality going to be on Saturday for the fans and media? What do you think we're going to get a glimpse of?
Well, I think it'll be a better, more entertaining actual game than we've had in recent years. I mean, we've had some wonky setups over the years with first half kind of 2-hand touch, second half tackle. We've had different kind of scenarios and sort of gimmicks, I suppose, at different times. I from all we've heard from Matt Rhule and coaches, I mean, they intend on making this a real game. I think you start with the fact that it sounds like quarterbacks are going to be live. I mean, how far back in Nebraska history do you have to go to see the last time quarterbacks were able to be hit, and taken to the ground in a spring sort of situation? So I think that really just underscores how much this team has to do in terms of tackling, in terms of evaluation from the coaches. We'll see how long it goes. I mean, the thing that was sort of holding up a potential game in the first place, as Matt Rhule said, was offensive line numbers. And so it sounds like they're healthy enough to at least do that for a while. But, these first spring games, I think, are really interesting with a new coach because we've sort of heard about what they want to do offensively, defensively. We sort of heard a little bit about personnel, but this is the first chance to see who lines up where and what that looks like. And, I think even this year now it's even a little bit more because the portal is open until April 30th. And so who you see out there, who you see making plays more than usual, I think will also inform what this roster could look like in a couple of weeks. So I think there's a lot to see. Of course, Frank Solich being honored at halftime is a sort of a big picture, really fascinating thing to see how that goes, how he's received by the fans, his reaction. So all kinds of stuff to watch. Hopefully we get some good weather, and it should be pretty entertaining, at least more so than maybe we're used to.
Evan Blaine's with us here from the Omaha World Herald. It's Hail Varsity Radio. And Evan, if it comes down to it, are you available to play right guard on Saturday?
I think I'm a little underweight maybe for what they're looking for there.
Well, I mean, if they just need a body, I mean, you could step in there, be a tackling dummy essentially for the defensive line. It could work out well if you're available. Maybe they'll pay you handsomely, NIL money. It could work out.
Yeah, maybe. I think I'd get rolled over by, Stephon Wynn or somebody who's probably got, 130 pounds on me. But, yeah, sure. If the NIL money's right, I'll consider it.
I want to keep with that NIL theme, and we don't know officially, Evan, where things are at for Dylan Raiola, but what's your gut tell you as far as Nebraska being able to compete with NIL SEC money? Do you think Nebraska's cautious with how they invest or how they spend? I mean, I'm just, aside from just how great Georgia's program is and what they've done, I'm just wondering here if Nebraska just wasn't willing or wasn't in competition with where Georgia's at and where Raiola may end up.
Well, it's an interesting case study because, you're talking about one of the top quarterbacks, one of the top prospects in the country where you're going up against all the big boys. So, I don't know that whatever Nebraska's NIL situation is, whatever's going on with Dylan Raiola necessarily is reflective of their recruiting process at large, if that makes sense. This is the top of the top. The bidders are out there and doing their thing, and it's hard to say exactly what the figures are. It's hard to say even how much Dylan Raiola and his family put the NIL money as a factor in their decision, because
sure,
you look at his final three teams, and I just think the experience and what you're looking for is so different from those three teams. I mean, you think about USC and the Heismans that Lincoln Riley has coached up, and what it would be to play like in Los Angeles, versus Georgia, where, man, you're a 5-star, cool. Like there's 14 of them, over here too. So you kind of can blend in a little bit more versus Nebraska, where you would be a celebrity and you would be viewed as the guy who could potentially bring them out of the wilderness and lead them to something great under a new staff. So, how you're wired, I think, is really important, especially with those three schools and how different that experience would be. So, certainly NIL sounds like it is a factor, but whether it's the main one, I don't know. I suppose we might not know that answer for a while.
Evan, while we're talking money here, dollars and cents, if I gave you $100, would you put it on red or white for the spring game?
Which color?
Yeah, in terms of who's going to win the game, red or white.
Yeah, the red or the white.
Oh, okay. Well, it seems like over the years the coaches tend to favor the red. They try to build their rosters that way. I know it's going to be a little more even under Matt Rhule, but I think there's just it's go big red, right? It's a little red, so I'm gonna go with red.
It's a smart answer. That's probably the most well-researched answer we've had over the past couple people we've been interviewing the past couple days.
Well, are you gonna lean on the number one defense or the number one offense? We'll have to see who's wearing what jersey, and then the 2s versus the 2s, the 3s versus the 3s, and we'll see if any of the quarterbacks can get in with the 1s. I'm anxious to see Harburg and the rest of that quarterback room along with Sims for sure. Evan, awesome to chat some football with you. We always appreciate you coming on, and we'll catch up with you this weekend. Thanks for the time today.
Yeah, thanks, guys. See you Saturday.
All right, there he is, Evan Bland, with us from the Omaha World Herald. Can find Evan on Twitter at Evan Bland, OWH, and we'll get ready, get dialed in with just when it comes to development, when it comes to projection, when it comes to misses, whiffs, or just not getting it done on the coaching front. What does the Athletics deep dive say about teams that have landed 5-star and 4-star prospects? What teams are great? What teams are terrible? We'll get there next. It's Hail Varsity. We're presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Open phones for you. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by Currency, 489-1240 or 800-825-5865. Let's talk development. Let's talk stars. And A couple of weeks away here from the NFL draft. Actually, a week from tomorrow. Not 2 weeks, but a week away from that opening round, first round Thursday night, with the moment Roger Goodell gets booed by everybody down in Kansas City. Elijah, when you think of Nebraska, do you think of a place where prospects come to thrive, prospects come to wither, or somewhere in the middle? I mean, both those first questions are extremes, but my traditional take on Nebraska is, for years and years, what made Nebraska really good, yes, they got tremendous players, but what made Nebraska better than most is they were able to evaluate, right? They were able to evaluate off of film, a lot of times evaluate a personality, and then get the kid, build him up, coach him up, develop him up, get him the reps, and then watch him go play ball and perform because they were ready. They did their job. They did it well. The system was different. It was hard to prepare for. And above all, as Keith Jackson said, mobile, agile, and hostile on the lines of scrimmage. Nebraska was better than most at being able to evaluate a talent. To me, that's where it starts. And when you think of Nebraska, have they misevaluated, or have they just botched what they had come in over the last 11 years? And it's been multiple coaching staffs.
It's been a combination of both, but whenever you combine both those two, I'm willing to go to the extreme. Nebraska, among the Power Fives, has been the place that you go if you want your NFL draft hopes to wither away. And it's harsh to say right now, but the last time Nebraska had a first-round draft pick was 12 years ago.
Prince Amukamara. 12 years ago was the last time Nebraska had a first-round draft pick. That's ridiculous for the amount of money and fan support that Nebraska has and the expectations of this place. And let's not also forget that just a couple years ago, Nebraska's draft streak ended in terms of having a player selected in the NFL draft. That ended, I believe, 2 or 3 seasons ago. Nebraska didn't have a player get selected in the NFL draft, and that streak died as well. So while Nebraska may have been the place, and probably through the Pelini years, it was the place where, you know what, you're a 3-star prospect, you were a little unheralded. Nebraska can turn you into a first or second round guy if you put in the work. And if the system is the right system in place for you, and obviously the transfer portal helps kids out with that. And you know what? Nebraska hasn't been the place in the last couple of years, and you've seen guys go into the portal and end up being high draft picks, a la Wan'Dale Robinson. Mm-hmm. It's happened. But Nebraska is not the place that you go if you want to become a high-level NFL draft pick. And I'm not saying that there haven't been guys that have gone on to find some semblance of success in the NFL, but it hasn't been what it was, and it hasn't been what you expect of a place with the resources of Nebraska. I mean, look at around the Big Ten, the schools that have similar resources in place. The Penn States of the world, the Wisconsins of the world. I'd even throw Michigan and Ohio State in there, even though their resources and their interest, at least in the past couple of years, may have been higher than Nebraska's. That's the type of level Nebraska should be on. And the fact that they've had a first-round draft drought as long as it's been is all the evidence you need that Nebraska's been the place where you go if your NFL draft dreams are going to wither away. I think a lot of it has been the constant transition. I think you've had mismatched parts. And hear me out. You get a guy on the line of scrimmage like a Hymas or a Gates, okay? I just, over the years, it was hard to see a guy at that level come in at that level and then leave better than he showed up. It seemed like they hit a ceiling. And that's something Dr. Rob Zadis has talked with us about a couple weeks ago, where you want to see guys hit their peak and then go on to even better ability once they get the NFL coaching. And Gates has thrived in the NFL. Hymas is still earning the check. I'm forgetting the kid that played guard that transferred in from Colorado.
Alex Lewis.
Yeah, Alex Lewis. I mean, I look at guys like Searles and Qualley, guys that have played a long time in the NFL that were kind of fringe 4-star, but they were 3-star guys. Nebraska has typically done best, and I don't have the 3-star numbers here. This article from The Athletic is only a 5-star and 4-star breakdown, but we told Babcock this in hour one. Nebraska, in the last 11 years, 67 4-star signees. Only 4 have gone to the NFL, that is by far the worst. The number one with a bullet in the bottom 10 of 4-star development. I think you've had some mismatched parts with a new coach and a new system, maybe not using a guy or not hitting it off or just flat out misevaluating. And I think you're on the verge of seeing that before the change with some of the high-star recruits Nebraska brought in. A lot of the high-profile kids, Elijah, aren't here anymore. They've transferred out of the program. But you look at a guy like on the offensive line, Turner Corcoran. Mm-hmm. Turner Corcoran and Bryce Benhart are monster recruits. They're top 150 guys. And guess what? They get to have a coach stay in the same spot he's been for the first time in a while. They've been through a lot of transition, and they've not been given an opportunity to just get better in practice, or they've been hurt.
Let's look at the history of Nebraska football, because what I remember growing up, and I'm sure what you remember from your time back in the 80s and 90s watching this team, Schmitty, was that if you were a guy that your freshman or your sophomore year, you started getting snaps in real game moments, you were a guy that was going to end up being drafted in the first 2 days of the draft, first, second, or third round, the current first 2 days of the draft.
First through fifth round at least.
Yes,
yeah.
You're going to get drafted. Now you look at those same guys. I mean, think back to Rex Burkhead, Amir Abdullah, Prince Amukamara, you have Alfonso
Gregory, Valentine, Malik Collins.
All those guys. You start getting some playing time early in your career at Nebraska. You were going to develop into a place by your senior year, maybe even your junior year, that you're going to be getting looked at as a high-level NFL draft prospect, first, second, or third round. You look at the guys now that are getting playing time early in their careers at Nebraska, and they don't finish their senior year looking all that much better than they were as the sophomores, with the main exception being a guy like Cam Jurgens. I mean, Cam Taylor-Britt got drafted in the second round, which is what's expected of a guy that got as much playing time at Nebraska as he did. Cam Jurgens, you saw that development through his career, ended up working himself up into a high-level draft pick. But you look elsewhere on the football team, guys that were playing early and often didn't end up developing into that high-level draft prospect that we think of. And you can look at guys currently within the team that fit that bill. Nash Hutmacher's a guy that got playing time early on the defensive line, and as of right now, I don't think he looks like a guy who's going to be a high-level NFL draft prospect.
Wait till Saturday. I think he's an NFL prospect.
This is what I'm saying. Can a new staff bring that out of him? Most likely, yes, you would think so, based on how much playing time he got early. You could say the same for a guy like Ty Robinson, even JoJo Doman. I know injuries were a part of that, but back during his time here, you thought that's a high-level NFL draft pick, and he doesn't end up being that. And there's guys on the roster right now that have been playing a long time at Nebraska, and guys that have recently graduated in Garrett Nelson, that you haven't seen make that leap from a guy who's good enough to be playing early to a guy who's good enough to be playing in the NFL. You haven't seen them make that leap, and that's what the standard should be at Nebraska, and I think that's what Matt Rhule's mission should be whenever he talks about, I'm focused on the guys in the roster right now. There's guys, based on their recruiting acumen and based on how early they played at Nebraska, that should be developing into NFL draft prospects, and simply put, they haven't. The question is, can Matt Rhule bring that out of these guys? Because as we're talking about with Mike Babcock back in hour one, that has become a barometer for how successful your program is. How many guys are you putting into the NFL? And right now, if you're looking to be a high-level NFL draft prospect, Nebraska is not the place that you would go.
History says Rhule will get guys ready. His goal is to get him a second contract. A lot of guys can go. How many guys can stay? In Rhule's time with Baylor, specifically with having that 4-star talent access in Texas, did well. He had a lot of guys that were those diamonds in the rough that were maybe a 2-star guy, probably on some sort of recruiting radar, that did really well at Temple. And that, to me, is a lot about the development, the coaching, but having an eye for being able to project the guy that can thrive in your system, and then can he thrive in somebody else's system? Does he mesh up well? When it comes to NFL draft, Nebraska, number one, worst with that 4-star development. Baylor's pretty fascinating, and Baylor's highlighted because of Rhule's reputation here, and I'm reading from the Athletic article. None of Baylor's coaching changes the past 11 years were a result of on-field failure, but the Bears have managed to thrive at developing 4-stars under Briles, Rhule, and Aranda. You've got Kenny Wright, Corey Coleman, and both were at Baylor as 4-star guys, and they left as first-round picks. So when it comes to struggles that extend beyond the field, Nebraska hasn't recruited as well as Tennessee or the Longhorns, but the 3 blue blood programs have mostly fallen on hard times. The last decade, they've struggled to develop players. And some of that, says The Athletic, can be chalked up to coaching turnover in all 3 cases, but Nebraska signing 67 4-stars in 11 draft classes that produced just 3 draft picks from that crop. That number is in a league of its own. You look at the Gophers, Minnesota, they have signed 4 4-star players total in 11 years. And they've had all 4 of those guys get drafted. If I could look at the 3-star, I thought Nebraska's been better with 3-star, and there's some preferred free agents, like Searles wasn't drafted, Will Compton wasn't drafted. Some of those guys didn't get picked, but they've had really long, good NFL careers. Texas and Oklahoma, Bud, to go back to 5-star. We highlight not to harp on Nebraska's misgivings, but Texas also is in a just horrible league of their own. Texas is littered with 5-star talent, and Texas is littered with 5-star disappointment. You go to Texas and you're a 5-star, good luck, man. Texas has signed 17 5-star players, only 4 5-star players have been drafted. Oklahoma signed 12. Only 3 have been drafted. Auburn, 4 picked out of 13. Tennessee right at 40%, 4 out of 10. You get a 5-star, man, they're going to end up on a roster somewhere for some part of time.
Well, and it's funny how you list off those teams. Those are also the teams that you and fans have expected to be a lot more successful than they have been over the past 10 years. All those teams that you've listed, Nebraska included. And
Oklahoma's been the only constant. They've been pretty good.
Whenever I look at Nebraska's roster right now, you got guys that Matt Rhule can turn into draft prospects, guys that a couple years ago we would have talked about their draft prospects. Xavier Betts, Nash Hutmacher, Ty Robinson, Thomas Fidone. There's a laundry list of guys in this team that should be NFL draft prospects. The question is, can Matt Rhule bring them out of them, as I said earlier?
No, he'll get to work on it. A Jock Doc's on the way. It's Hail Varsity, presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. Schmidt and Elijah Herbel. Some Patriots threatening right now to tie things up. Southwest leading 3-2. The reserve game here at Millard South. The Silverhawks hanging on right now. It's time to say hi to Dr. Brandon Seifert, Nebraska Orthopedic Center. A Jock Doc Wednesday. Dr. Brandon, how are we doing? Thanks for jumping on.
You bet, fellas. How are you?
We're good. I'm here in Omaha, and Elijah's hunkered down in the studio. How's your week been?
Hey, it's been great, buddy. Enjoying this weather, although we could cut back on the wind a little, right?
Well, where will you be with this tornado watch we got here? You setting up a lawn chair in the driveway and watching it come in like a true Midwesterner?
Why not? I just got that alert that came across the radio in the car.
Yeah, the old Lieutenant Dan tribute. Dr. Brandon's going to be out there, tank top, saying bring it on like he's Draymond. I like it. Damar Hamlin is going to keep on keeping on. What a story Hamlin has been, Dr. Brandon. The Bills' safety is okayed to play after cardiac arrest. The comedo cordis was the diagnosis after he fell to the turf in Cincinnati. What a remarkable story Damar has been. Dr. Brandon, your thoughts here. You've been a part of a lot of teams. You've been a trainer for so many. I know we talked about Damar Hamlin when this incident happened. Your reaction to him moving forward in his career, staying with the Bills and wanting to continue his pro career.
Yeah, just an amazing story, on one hand, that we're even here, talking to him. He's even talking about playing football again. So, there's that side of it. Also, from a medical perspective, really kind of a fascinating scenario and a true testament to how far medicine has come in these scenarios. Just to review, guys, as we think about commotion cordis, and we talked about this before originally when this happened to him, essentially what that is, it's some type of blunt force trauma to the chest, usually the left side of the chest. And it kind of happens right before the heart's about to contract. And it basically disrupts that whole rhythm, that electrical signal in the heart, and stops it beating. And so baseball, softball, hockey puck, lacrosse, that's kind of the most common area. Or if you get, certain hit in football can do it. These typically happen in, patients under age 20. That's where the predominant majority of these happen. But honestly, as you look at the stats out there, there's only about 10 of these a year that even happen. What's interesting is as they've brought out more of these AEDs, the defibrillators, portable defibrillators that are out there, the survival of these is actually going up to north of 50%. Which is pretty impressive. Now, that's a couple studies that put that out there, but obviously there's not many of these to happen to study these that much. So that's kind of how this all takes place. So now you fast forward, amazing save in this young man's life. Now he's back saying, hey, I'm back to normal. I'd like to go play football. So what do you do to make that happen? What kind of test do you have to do? And so this young man's going to have to go through an extensive kind of medical workup, which I'm sure he's already done at this point, where they're going to do EKGs, echocardiograms, some kind of cardiac stress tests. They're going to do all of that stuff. And the main thing there is it's figuring out, does he have anything structural or something mechanical, a rhythm-related problem? And did that lead to this? Because essentially commotion cordis is really a diagnosis of exclusion where you've basically ruled out all the other bad stuff, structural stuff. And then you arrive at this and say, hey, everything else looks good. This must have been the cause. And so that's really where he's at this point.
Dr. Brandon Seifert's with us here. It's a Jock Doc Wednesday on Hail Varsity Radio. And Dr. Brandon, you mentioned the fact that this is pretty rare, only happens 10 times per year. So is this more of a freak injury, or can we expect this to happen again in the NFL as they lower that target range as you're trying to avoid head injuries? I saw that being discussed when this first happened. What's your thoughts on that? Is this something that is now a risk of playing football, or is this still more of a freak injury than anything else?
Sure, Elijah. And I'd kind of take that question twofold. So first, relating to him, as he thinks about going forward and playing, as you look at all the studies that are out there for this, the big question always is, okay, if this happens once to you, are you at a higher risk of having it happen again to you? And the answer is no, at least based on the studies that we have. And so basically his risk of having this again would go back to everybody else's in the country, wouldn't be any higher. And so as long as structurally, mechanically he looks great, then the answer is sure, you can go back and play and basically take the same odds you had before. To take that second part of the question there, Elijah, about are we going to see more of these in the NFL? It's an interesting question. Most of these do happen in athletes who are under 20. And part of that is when you kind of look at that, muscular development, that thickening of the chest wall, obviously that changes a lot as you kind of get 17, 18, 19. You have thicker chest wall, more muscles, more protection. Pads have better protection. So I would say at this point, we're probably not going to see a drastic increase in that. If anything, the more we see contact football, tackle football start to push down to younger ages, and maybe start to have, heaven forbid, kind of like basketball and volleyball, traveling all over with club ball. When do we reach a point where people start doing that with tackle football, which there already is some of that going on? I think you potentially could see it there, would probably be the chance for a higher risk for that to happen, again, just because of the physical immaturity of those athletes and the thinness or less bulky chest wall, if you will, puts them more at risk.
Quickly here, Dr. Brandon, if this were to happen at a youth sporting event, as you mentioned that there, is there any course of action that can be taken immediately like we saw in Buffalo to save a potential young athlete's life? God forbid this would happen on a youth sporting field.
Absolutely. It's that quick kind of trigger reaction of patient goes down, you're right there, out of their loss of consciousness, you feel for your pulse, and you basically just hit the CPR protocol where you start your compressions, EMS gets activated, and then if you're lucky, you've got one of those defibrillator devices there in the field, and you get the pads on them and basically deliver a shock almost immediately. And you have about a 3 to 5 minute window there where you can make a big difference in someone's life, which is not a lot of time.
Dr. Brandon Seifert's with us, Nebraska Orthopedic Center at Jock Doc Wednesday. Damar Hamlin, our topic. Dr. Brandon, about 90 seconds here, but do you like the route that Damar went that's seeing 3 heart experts to get clearance?
Absolutely. I don't know, Chris, that's a great question. What's the right number of second, third, fourth, fifth opinions on this? That's a tough call. Obviously, you want to try to find as many cardiologists that see more athletes, have more of a sports medicine mindset, that are used to seeing some different types of, athletic cardiology type pathology. But yeah, seeing multiple opinions would be the right answer for this. Do you see 3? Sure, that probably is sufficient. Do you see more? I don't know if there's necessarily a need for that, especially those tests are really great at, we're so good at, cardiac diagnostics that I don't think you have to run a crazy amount of these tests at each different facility. You're going to probably get the same result.
Dr. Brandon, have a good rest of the week. We will check in with you again soon, and thanks for a few minutes today.
Okay, fellas. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, Dr. Brandon.
All right, there he is. Dr. Brandon Seifert with us, Nebraska Orthopedic Center. Jock Doc Wednesday. Good to see him. Incredible catch by Landon Kelly out in center field. Right now, Ken Griffey Jr.'s jealous. That was wonderful. Made a diving grab to his left in center field. The old Southwest Silverhawks now trailing 4-3. Millard South's got the bats going and been good on the base paths. We'll see how things shake out. We'll wind down a road show here in Omaha. It's Hail Varsity, and we're presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, Roadshow Wednesday, Hail Varsity here at Millard South. Reserve baseball going on. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Tomorrow, Single Barrel. Come find us 4 to 6. Get your spring game weekend kicked off the right way. Big old thick, juicy steak. What did we take down, Elijah, last fall? We had 3 different steaks.
It was the Nebraska Butcher's Board.
Right, the Butcher's Board. We had the Béarnaise sauce.
Yep, the burger.
We had sausage with it. The burger was tremendous.
I got the meat sweats.
That was incredible.
I know.
Yeah, you did get the meat sweats. You're an amateur, my friend.
Well, see, I have, as I've mentioned a couple times in the show before, cut out alcohol and red meat from my diet for the most part, so I'm not sure.
I'll pick it up for you.
I fear what that Butcher's Board would do to me today.
Oh, you'd love it. Your body would thank you to be able to have alcohol and red meat again. We got to work on you in this diet.
It would thank me as I eat it. I'm not sure it would thank me roughly 12 hours later, if you that's what I'm saying. Like,
no, I get it, but that's your roommate's problem, isn't mine.
That's why I got the bidet at home, right?
What are all these bath salts and what's the incense for? Well, wrong answer for tomorrow with the incense take. My fault. But come see us. Do so. Single Barrel, 9th and P, inside the Graduate. If you haven't stayed there or made your way there or been to the Single Barrel for a Nebraska weekend, you're missing out, man. It's awesome, a lot of fun, over 200 whiskeys to choose from, cold beers for you. And, yeah, I'm going to get the bib ready for tomorrow night. I can't wait to get back down there. We will return on Saturday as well, 11 to 1, as we get you ready for the Nebraska spring game with Hail Varsity Weekend Edition. One Bill Dolman has RSVP'd for Saturday, which is going to be cool.
And one of the best parts of the Single Barrel, location.
Oh, it's
start your
great.
Game day there. You go down, get a couple drinks, maybe get some bourbon in you, a nice steak. You're nice and full, and all the downtown bars are right there. You got to make your way to the stadium as you walk past some bars. Get ready to go. Then you get in by the spring game at 1. It's perfect. I mean, the Single Barrel in terms of location, in terms of what they offer, is phenomenal. We can't wait to see you there on both tomorrow and Saturday.
Heath and the folks love you, man. It's good to be back with you for another round of football, and we are excited for it. NBA tonight. Should we do a steak and a beer since we're down there tomorrow?
Are we going to be talking the Nuggets? Because that's the only game I'll be watching tonight.
Sure, but you've got the Heat and the Bucks.
And I will say that the Lakers
the Greek
and the
Freak
Grizzlies
is back. Yeah, the Lakers and Grizzlies, I mean, that's -1 right now. The Lakers lead 1-0. Nuggets and T-Wolves, minus 8.5. Denver, Milwaukee, minus 8.5. The favorite. So, I don't know, man. I mean, the Lakers have just kind of slept walk and underachieved for a while. Fair to say.
Pick your lead. Are you going to pick the Lakers?
Do we push this? Let's push this for tomorrow. Let's push for tomorrow.
Okay, because
I really don't care about any of the games.
Oh, you're missing. If you aren't, I'm not sure what the NBA's problem is with the Nuggets. They refuse to put them in any good primetime TV slots. They're going to be the late game, all first round long. That's
against the Wolves, though, man.
It's disrespect. I mean, the game starts at. A game in Minnesota later this week starts at 10 o'clock local time. Nuggets tickets have been going under resale or under list price because nobody wants to go to a weeknight game that's going to end at 11 o'clock Denver time. You can go get sweet seats for $100 a pop in Denver. I would go out there if I could. If I wasn't
done.
Doing this
Let's
show.
jump on a train after the spring game.
Let's do it.
All right, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Find us tomorrow at 4 from the Single Barrel with Hail Varsity Radio, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play for the podcast. See ya.